Welcome to Proof Live, where booze brands in the right hands. On a quest for the best tipple and toast with the most exciting and respected bottlings. Competing for the 100-point Perfect Score Century Award and the double gold and a spot on the top shelf to be sipped, shaken, stirred, and celebrated. Slide up to the bar with the biggest names in the spirits game as they clink glasses with your hostess, legendary connoisseur Jennifer English, for intimate conversations, live tastings, product launches, and the happiest hour there is. Now, broadcasting live from the commodious confines of the swanky Proof Saloon, where the liquid elite meet. Here is your hostess, the Madam of Manhattans, the Duchess of Daiquiris, the Queen of Conviviality, your hostess, James Beard Award winner, Jennifer English.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to the Proof Saloon. Boy, am I excited to welcome you today, because this may be the most fun and exciting show we ever do. Yes, I'm going to fangirl just a little bit and maybe gush more than maybe my producer thinks is appropriate. But that's because we have an extraordinary woman on with us today. Her name's Aisha Tyler, and perhaps you best know her for her comedic sense or her television appearances or for her numerous roles that delight you throughout her career. But maybe the reason you're going to fall in love with her today is when you hear her talk about proper cocktails and the incredible line of double gold medal winning ready to drink cocktails that she created and has launched, called Courage and Stone. The packaging is unique. It's irresistible. What's in the bottle is irresistible. The Stone, the classic old-fashioned, is a 97-point double gold winner from the 2020 Proof Awards, and the classic Manhattan is a 98-point winner. What's not to love? Well, there's nothing not to love. And we're thrilled to add these two Courage and Stone gems to our top shelf here in the Proof Saloon, and welcome their creator, Aisha Tyler. How are you?
I'm so good. I was excited and very frantically posting a link so people can join us right now, but I'm really happy to be here with you. Thank you so much.
So I'm going to raise a glass to you first and foremost.
Yes.
Say,
absolutely.
On behalf of the entire cocktail community, and the cocktail, you got your big ice cube.
I got the fancy ice. I gotta have the fancy ice cube. I'm one of those. I mean, I'm never gonna tell anybody you should enjoy your cocktails how you like, but I love a fancy ice cube.
I love your.
I'm gonna toast with you.
Do you ever freeze a single filthy black cherry in the middle of your ice cube?
I have never done that, but that is happening immediately at the end of this conversation. I have a great place here in LA that sells bar quality ice to the public called Penny Pound Ice. They do these beautiful mixed bag of different sizes. Oh, wow. They do the Collins ice and the small and the medium and the large rocks, and you can get Pebble ice. And so because freezing it yourself, it never looks as beautiful as that like perfect clear ice you get in a proper bar. So I just want to wander down there and pay bartenders to make it for me.
And I love that you know that. I love that you appreciate that. Your connoisseurship is now legend. Double gold
that's so sweet.
Is all the proof we need.
It's so exciting. Just thank you to everybody in the food and beverage community, everybody who judged the Proof Awards for, I actually don't even know if I have words for it. It's really a thrill to have been given 2 double golds for both flavors. I'm like over the moon. And
you were honored as well for the design of the bottle, which we'll get to. But take me to the day that you found out that you won. Clearly, this is a passion project for you.
It is. I'm sorry about the rattling. I'm getting a little dried orange out of my bag here to put in my old fashioned so that I can drink with you. It was a thrill. My publicist, Lisa Morbetti, who I work really closely with, and who also is a lover of cocktails, and in the very early parts of my life developing this line, we had many a proper cocktail together. Sent me an email and said, great news, and it was really, really wonderful news, and also gratifying because I've been working on this cocktail line since, in some form since late 2014, just in terms of, you know, going around and drinking in you know, different bars and learning about cocktails and learning about, you know, elevating my own understanding of the culture and the world and going to Tales of the Cocktail and really immersing myself in cocktail culture and in bartending culture. So it was really gratifying to know that other people enjoy the cocktails as well.
Talk to me a little bit.
Cheers, Jennifer.
I usually save this for the end of the show, but what is the house toast for Courage and Stone?
You know, I have my own toast that I use all the time, and some of them are not safe for work.
You know what? Just the equivalent of table, so you can say anything.
Well, this is okay. This is really not safe for work, this one. But I have a lot of friends and close loved ones who are Irish, and there's this mutilated Irish toast that we always do. It's in 3 parts. So first you go to friendship, the ship that never sinks, and then you take a sip, and then you go to friendship, because you're a little bit more drunk, the sink that never ships, and then you take a second one. And then by the end of the drink, you say, to friendship, you fucking cunt. So it goes off the rails at the end.
I love that.
That's a proper Irish toast.
That's so fantastic. I'm grateful to you. Now listen, you can recognize the art in the realm of the capital F fine arts of food and beverage. Yes. What was it about this that spoke to this intrinsic connoisseurship that you really have? How did that connect for you? When did that connect for you?
God, that's a good question. I feel, you know, making too much of a meal of it, that I've always been a student of food culture and of restaurant culture. I grew up in San Francisco, which is a fantastic food city, and really a place that doesn't just have great restaurants, but really prides itself on being, you know, building a culture around food, and also around the kind of the nexus between the intimacy of creating something and the experience of it, right? So when you go to a restaurant, you know, the idea that there's a chef back there who has a passion for what they're doing, and that the place is really an expression of their own artistic urges and their ideas, and you're really going to dine with this chef and have this kind of an experience. And so I grew up like really loving food in that way. And then as an adult was, you know, I think it came really from being a foodie, from traveling for work. You know, I'd be traveling to different cities for my job, and then I'd be in a city and I'd go to a great restaurant with a really great bar program, and I tried their beverages. And then that naturally led to wanting to go to places that just specialized in doing really great cocktails. And, you know, I think unfortunately, you know, there can be kind of a very frothy or fluffy idea about bar culture and about craft cocktails being kind of very performative. But I think when you go to a bar that really has a strong program, it's the same experience as going to a restaurant. They want you to have something intimate and personal. They really want to serve you. Like I love bartenders. They are the purveyors of joy. Their job is to really see you coming and understand what you need and make sure that you have a really wonderful time. And so it was that I fell in love with restaurants, and then I fell in love with bars, and then I fell in love with, you know, bartenders and bar culture. And I would find, because I traveled a lot alone, that I'd be sitting at the bar to eat dinner, or I'd go to a bar by myself and I'd strike up a conversation with bartenders, and just loved, you know, there are certain kind of person self-selects to be a bartender. You know what I mean? They're gregarious. They care about the people's experience. They're fun. They're a good time. And just form these friendships with these bartenders.
And what they do, if you don't mind, they do 2 really beautiful, simple things. Mm-hmm. They cultivate conviviality.
Absolutely.
And they cultivate hospitality. They bring it
both
to
of those things. They do.
Oftentimes, they are, especially in a great restaurant with a celebrated chef, you have to remember that often, if you come in with a clean palate, the first impression that you get to make with your philosophy of flavor is at the bar, with either a sip or a snack. And you, as the chef, cannot ignore that. That is the first point of contact oftentimes in celebrated houses all over the world. And we didn't appreciate that for a very long time, and now we do.
It's true. It's true. And I think you will find, I think my picture just dropped out. There we go. I think you'll also find that when you go to a restaurant that you're excited about, if the bar program doesn't match the food program, the entire experience is diminished.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? If there's not as much care and thought given to the quality of the cocktails that are coming out of the bar, your overall experience is diminished, and sometimes your opinion is diminished. And not to be a snob, but it's like that's my point of entry in any restaurant is I'm going to order that first cocktail, and that's my appetizer. Typically, that's the first thing that I have before I have anything else. And it's exciting when you are dazzled or surprised by the offerings on a cocktail menu. I love classic cocktails, obviously, but I do also love to have something I've never had before. I get really excited when I go to a bar and I think, oh, there's a real artist behind the bar here coming up with something really exciting and new.
I love things, but I don't necessarily want to jump into making them. And the journey that you've undertaken with Courage and Stone, first as a woman-owned business, secondly, as a woman-owned spirits business, third, as a woman-owned brand, I have to say, you really are, I don't say breaking through, because there are a few other women, but not many. I mean, there's some like Lisa Laird who inherited, their position at a company that's been around for 200 years. But there are not a lot of women in this game. And it's not like you had someone that you could point to and say, oh, I see it, so I can be it. How did you know this was possible? And what was lit inside of you to make you not only dream, feel, but believe this was possible and start on the journey to begin with? It's one thing to have a dream. It's another to actually make your dream come true. Talk a little bit about that for us.
Yeah, it's a good question. And I guess it's been such a long time that I want to remember like what that first feeling, it really was a problem that I wanted to solve for myself, I guess, in the sense that I was having these great cocktail experiences in bars. And I'm a real quality over quantity kind of person. I really want like a great drink rather than kind of like, 5, kind of oxidized glasses of Sauvignon Blanc in a row. Do you know what I mean? I'd rather have a really proper drink. And I would get home and, after having these great experiences, and I wanted to replicate it at home. I really wanted to have that kind of experience, get home on a Wednesday night and have a really proper cocktail at the end of the day. And so I really, I bartended in college, in very serviceably, a serviceable way, a lot of flaming lemon drops and, a lot of Statues of Liberty. And then, but I really wanted to educate myself. So I started, I just built out a proper bar for myself. I started learning about the cocktails that I love, trying to replicate them at home, and quickly realized, that that's a massive undertaking. To be able to even make like a small family of proper cocktails requires, an investment on a family of vermouths and a family of spirits, and you need your bitters and you need your tools. And I loved it, but I realized like most people don't have the time or the energy to do this or the resources, you know what I mean? They've got other stuff to do. And I would get home on a Wednesday night and I'd be like, I want a Negroni, but I don't want to make a big mess on my counter and get my rye glass out and go crazy. And so I started batching cocktails for myself at home. I would just make a big batch of them and keep them in a glass bottle in my fridge so that I could come home and, pour out, 2 or 3 fingers of a Negroni at night and just enjoy myself, right? And I also discovered, because this is right when pre-batched and bottled cocktails were starting to catch on in bars, that it tasted better after it had been sitting in glass for a little while, right? The flavors melded and the edges softened and it got more complex. And so I just was like, well, man, it sure would be great if I could buy this in the store. And that was a really organic path towards coming up with this line. It was a need that I saw for myself. And I thought, if I want this, I'm sure other people want it too.
Well, and you spend so much time on the road. I'm also going to imagine the sort of subtext of this has to be the consistency. Consistent. You could order 25 Manhattans at 25 different bars and get maybe 12 different drinks. Maybe
or 25 different drinks. Yeah.
I was going to say it, but I didn't want to sound like I was slamming anybody. But
well, it's sometimes the variations are enjoyable. Like sometimes it's a variation that the bartenders come up with, and then sometimes like this is not a Manhattan at all. I don't know what I just got. So
Manhattans, I'm usually more consistent with being served a Manhattan. Old fashioned is almost like saying dealer's choice in a way.
Yes.
Because everyone will say, well, this is how my first boss taught me, or this is how my grandmother taught me, or my grandfather taught me. And there's almost no wrong answer, and yet there is still one right answer. Do you understand what I mean?
I do.
You most certainly do. And I want to talk about this 97-point double gold winning And look at this stunning bottle.
Oh, thank you.
You see it from all sides. I mean, it's just a stunning, thoughtful expression of a modern, very contemporary take on proper cocktails. On the side, it says Brooklyn born 2015, pour, drink, enjoy. And then it says win. And I wanted to ask you about win. What does win mean on the side of your bottle?
You know, I came up with that set of phrases because this, to me, the personality of this line, the expression of this line was that I wanted to make sure that when you open this cocktail, this bottle, that you were going to have a great experience. That really, this was, you know, to use kind of millennial language, that this was a life hack. That you were going to come home and it was going to be a delicious cocktail every time you opened it. And you didn't have to make a mess, and you didn't need to know anything or have any special tools. You could just pour this great drink out, and every time you tasted it, it was going to be delicious and consistent. And so the win part is just like, it's the hack, right? You just get to cut straight to the enjoyment, right? You don't have to go through all the other work. And it's an experience that I think, for me, I love that I'm just like, you know, hey, everybody sit down, let me pour you a drink. And everyone's going to go, oh man, that's a good old fashioned. We're winning right now.
It's a really delicious old fashioned. Let's take a sip of it together. And while we're pouring it and serving it, I want you to tell me about what an old fashioned is. Look at 97. No, yeah, there it is.
That's the Manhattan.
Double gold winner.
There we go.
What is an old fashioned to you?
Ooh, oh, that's such a good question. Okay, good. So I learned a lot about the provenance of the old fashioned when I was developing this line. And I really studied it. I really wanted to understand where it came from. And people might differ with me, and that's fine, internet, come at me. But my understanding of the old fashioned, the reason it's called an old fashioned, is it's one of the very first American cocktails. It is an old fashioned cocktail because it is old fashioned. And, you know, in the 1800s, you know, when the quality of your hooch varied widely from place to place, an old-fashioned cocktail was just a spirit, any spirit, bitters, and sugar. Now, sometimes we refer to that very early version as a rock and rye, right? It was just, you know, rye and sugar. But, you know, you'd go into a saloon somewhere, you'd go into a bar somewhere, they'd have, you know, this kind of like middling quality spirit, and you'd throw a little bit of sugar in there to soften it up and make it taste good. And so, contrary to popular belief, most old fashions, as we know them today, are made with rye. But an old fashioned cocktail is just a spirit, sugar, and bitters. And it can be anything. And I got obsessed with gin old fashions a few years ago when I was developing, and we're working on a gin version of the old fashioned now, because it's got this bright, citrusy kind of, it's more of like a summer drink during the day. And that was what drove me towards learning more about the old fashioned. But you can make an old fashioned with any spirit. But this is the classic expression of the old fashioned.
So we're going to take a sniff to start with, and immediately you're struck by the really bright, stupefyingly fresh aroma of orange oil that literally smells like someone just twisted a peel right under your nose, which is a very different thing than any other thing named orange oil anywhere in the marketplace. Mm-hmm. This, to me, might be the hidden genius in this product.
Oh,
it might be the smallest touch, but it might be the thing that really makes it feel alive. Talk a little bit about some of the nuances that went into crafting this particular old fashioned, because it's, like I said, this is a showstopper. It stops you in your tracks and makes you pay attention.
Oh, I love it. Thank you. I really did want an old fashioned with a very distinctive profile. I wanted it to be experientially very special. And even though it's a classic expression, it's our classic expression, and it shouldn't taste like anything else that's out there. And I wanted it to be fruit forward, but not in a sticky, sweet way. You know, when you have a proper, like, you know, we've had a lot of, you know, kind of like messy Friday night, you know, in a college bar old fashions where they've muddled, you know, like that sad slice of orange that's been sitting in that wet dish, which I know because I used to bartend.
Can you, you know, looking at me? I mean, is this like, can you read me like a psychic?
Speaking from experience, right? It's like we were separated at birth. We're twin flames in this respect.
I'm a psychic, and I'm seeing sad dreams in your past.
so many. Oh God, the old fashioned where they all of a sudden you look over and he's made it, and then he's topping it with soda from the gun, and you're like, what? And so I wanted that.
When it's 7 Up.
Oh God! Oh, I literally, I've been like, I'm like, he's doing okay. He's doing okay. No. But so I wanted something that had a beautiful fruit forward nose that wasn't too sticky, too, melodramatic, but something, because I know for me, and I imagine this is true for you, I always smell my cocktail when I get it. It's the very first thing that I do before I taste it. And so that experience had to be something really distinctive and delicious. It needed to smell delicious.
Can I just
And
stop you
there's,
there for 1 second? Because you're a connoisseur, and a lot of people might be seeing this and might not be as awoke to or invited into or inspired to join the cocktail world. And this might be a bit of a cocktail primer for them.
yes,
So in
yes,
a way, we're giving them a master class in the old fashioned. So
I love
instead
it.
of losing this opportunity, let's remind everybody, maybe the first thing you do once you're
Mhm,
presented with your cocktail
mhm.
is to follow Aisha's advice, and you give it a good sniff. What are we sniffing
Give it a
for
try.
again?
So you're smelling, well, any cocktail, you're looking for kind of the forward notes, the strong flavors, what the dominant kind of personality of the cocktail is. I think I love the way that booze smells on its own. I love the way that whiskey smells. There's typically notes of vanilla and, a creamy kind of nose quality for when whiskey's well made and well aged. And so you're looking for that way in, like, what is this experience about to be? And I mean, I'm an American whiskey lover. I have a big bourbon collection. I mean, I love that big vanilla forward, spicy, creamy, nutmeggy quality that you get from whiskey. So I'm always looking for that kind of a nice whiskey nose. And then on this one, there's lots of orange and there's some dark cherry. Because you've also had your kind of the sad Friday night in a college bar, old fashioned with that macerated or mutilated bright red maraschino cherry at the bottom. But I really wanted to go for the black cherry quality that you get with a proper aged maraschino cherry, which I sometimes will just eat out of the jar with a spoon. Yeah. Go ahead.
I wanted to just interject here for 1 minute. We're talking with Aisha Tyler from Courage and Stone about her extraordinary 97-point double gold medal winning bottled cocktails called Courage and Stone. We're sipping the classic old fashioned with her right now. And I don't want to run out of time, but let's talk about the notion of house style. This has a heritage, a pedigree that goes all the way back to the 1800s. People like David Wondrich and Dale DeGraff have written and opined on this topic extensively. But we all accept that there was an early day when cocktail was first invented. But once you agree that this is what an old-fashioned is, there are some components of it that really don't change. The kind of whiskey you use, the kind of bitters you might use if you use bitters. What are you talking about when we talk about this version? What were the editorial choices you made with regard to flavors that are in this, that are so reminiscent and evocative of that melody, that old-fashioned melody that you're playing with your hand, so it doesn't sound like anybody else's? You've made this old-fashioned tune your own. Will you talk about what went into doing that?
Well, I started with my own formulations using market ingredients, and I made many, many, many iterations. I did, for people out there who are listening, I'm sure you will relate, I did a lot of day drinking because I wanted to do something that A, was expressive of the style, and B, expressive of me and my tastes. And again, I mean, above all, for me, deliciousness must trump everything. It must be delicious. So I was really looking for, again, the best expression of these fruits, the best expression of the rye, the best expression of the combination of those things, and also something that had a personality, had distinct flavors, but where the whiskey still gets to be the star. It didn't want to have the flavors overwhelm. So in terms of a melody, if the harmony versus the melody, I really wanted something where the whiskey was the star of the beverage, and the top notes of the chocolate and the cherry, the dark cherry and the orange, and the spices of the bitters didn't overwhelm. And for people who are tasting this for the first time, I will say very specifically that this is an 80 proof cocktail. It comes full proof. And that's intentional because in a bar, your cocktail is going to be diluted to, something like, 20% by the time you get it. They're really going to, they stir it on ice and they dilute it. But at home, you're going to put this over ice and you're going to sit and, I don't know, talk with your family or watch a movie. And I wanted to make sure that the drink had structure over time. So even after a significant amount of ice melt, you were still going to have really beautiful structure, a really strong experience with the whiskey, that the whiskey wasn't going to fall apart on you and the drink wasn't going to fall apart on you. So it's a forceful old fashioned. It's meant to be drunk over ice because the layperson at home is going to grab ice out of their ice maker and pour this on that. And I didn't want, after 10 minutes of them Netflixing and chilling, for their drink to have fallen apart on them. So I've tasted a lot of other drinks in the category, and not to criticize any of them, but it was really important to me that that this be a strong, and I don't just mean proof-wise, but a strong expression, a really definitive style. And so that hopefully people can say, I know what an old-fashioned tastes like when I taste a Courage and Stone old-fashioned.
There are a few words that I use repeatedly, and our publisher, Michael Politz at Food and Beverage Magazine, almost counts when it's almost a drinking game. When is Jennifer going to say conviviality? When is she going to say that? And so he's sort of listening for them. But one of the words, to me, this is the essential old-fashioned. You could put this in an encyclopedia anywhere and say, this is what this is supposed to taste like. And James Beard, the father of American gastronomy, said that food unites us. And I always maintain that we can only be united insofar as we have the shared language, the common language, to be united by it. And if I order an old fashioned and you give me something else because it means something else to you, we have one of these, not one of these. And that is what I salute you for achieving with this. You've made the essential old fashioned. And with the 4 or 5 minutes we have left, and we're going to run out of time, and I don't want to because I'm having a blast. I love having you here, and I'm totally fangirling. Let's talk Manhattans, please.
Let's talk about the Manhattan. While we talk, I'm going to, I brought a little coupe, my little Nick and Nora glass over here for my Manhattan, and I'm going to, while we chat, I'm going to chill on and I'm going to be fancy for the kids at home. I did get out the glass today. And some ice, one piece of which just fell on the floor.
When we were getting ready for this conversation with you today, I had asked if you have a special glass that you would recommend. We enjoy our sips, and I heard from your team that you actually are a glass aficionado and collector like me. So I was really eager to see your glassware.
I have these sweet little Nick and Nora glasses that I love, and they're these beautiful etched glasses that have little matching sets. I've gone through quite a bit of glassware in my time. I used to, use these huge kind of heavy, Waterford style etched glasses in the past, but I've gone more to the smaller, delicate glasses, and I don't know why that is. I think. Like I love martinis. I'm still a great fan of a gin martini, and I do them in the Nick and Nora's so that the night lasts a little longer. Because if you do it in a big soup bowl, you're going to be finished before the salad comes. And I love the old fashioned look of a Nick and Nora. Right? It's got a beautiful vintage vibe to it.
And I want to take that opportunity to weave our friend Dale DeGroff, the king of cocktails, back into this conversation. So when it comes to portioning. And you want to know how to make a perfect Manhattan, a pour for someone? Dale's motto is always that it's 15 perfect sips to stimulate the appetite.
Oh, I love that. I've never heard that quote before.
It's so apt and fitting for this moment because you can have as much as you want, but really you want the temperature to stay right. And you've given all this attention to the architecture and the structure and the body. Yes. And you don't want to lose that. And you don't.
It should be experiential, right? Like it is like, to me, a drink is an aspect of the meal. It is not something to get, intoxicated by. It is something that is a part of the entire experience. And so you really want to taste it. And you don't want to be knocking it back. You really want to give yourself an opportunity to enjoy it. I do have my little set of adorable tools that I got from Cocktail Kingdom. Shout out to Cocktail Kingdom, which I do love. We love Cocktail Kingdom. I underpoured myself today. Actually, I should have given myself a little bit more. It is still the
That's
middle
called
of the
wash
day.
line. So in the professional circles. Hey, by the way, have you ever competed in the speed rack competition?
I haven't. So they asked me to judge one year, and I couldn't because I was working. But I would love to come back to Speed Rack when they come back on deck because I love what they do. There we go. And I've got a little cherry at the bottom of the glass here.
Okay,
for
hang
the
on.
kids at home.
I'm gonna pour it fresh.
But I love what they're doing. And I'll tell you a very short story while you're refreshing your drink, which is that the first year I went to Tales, I was invited by some friends of mine, some new friends of mine in the cocktail industry. And I went because I really wanted to learn. And this was the beginning of me kind of thinking about what I wanted to do in the space. And I was like, God, I'm not going to know anybody. It's going to be so strange. And I knew so many bartenders when I got to New Orleans. I was like, I don't know what this says about me, but I know like 30 people here, which was just a blast. I traveled everywhere and all those guys all showed up in one place. And just, it was so fun because, you know, the day part of Tales is the business part. But at night, you just get to go hang out with bartenders, drink what they drink, you know, talk about the stuff they talk about, learn about what they were passionate about. And the Cocktail King guys are always there, so I always pick up some fun stuff when I'm there.
Do you have one of the Gary Regan Negroni finger stir sticks?
I don't, but I will right after this conversation.
We got to get you one because if you love Negronis, right?
I love them. I love Negronis. I love Negronis. I love all Negroni variations. Boulevardiers are a big favorite. There's somebody parking outside, everybody. And my other... Mm-hmm.
Is there a Negroni coming soon to the Courage and Stone line near you?
So I have my eyes on the Negroni Prize, absolutely. And the question for me is going to be making sure that I get the profile right. You know, the classic Negroni is made with Campari. And, you know, they're not sharing their recipe. That is a time tested and protected recipe, hundreds and hundreds of years old. But I would love to come up with a Negroni that I think tastes as delicious as every proper Negroni I've ever had. So that is definitely one of the next things that I'll be working on. We all love them, and they're one of my favorites. So yes.
Well, we've run out of time, and I'm so.
Look at it! Look at that finger! I love it. Brilliant. It's the index finger, I'm assuming. Yes.
You kind of haven't lived till Gaz Regan has stirred your drink with his finger.
It is a rival. I love it. I love it.
I could talk to you about cocktails in Los Angeles and everything from Ivy Gimlets and happy Friday nights, less sad Friday nights.
Yes.
But I want to take a sip of this with you, and I want to congratulate you again on the double win. The 2 double golds for Courage and Stone for the classic Manhattan and the just essential old fashioned.
Oh, I love it.
And I'm going to share a toast with you. It's how we end every show.
Yes, I'm sure it'll be safer for work than the one that I shared at the beginning of the show.
It's okay. I was outside of Copia at the American Museum of Wine, Food, and Art.
I love Copia. I went there a few times last year. Yeah.
And so Julia's Kitchen, when they first opened, Julia Child was there. And Julia and I were sitting outside waiting for the luncheon to begin. And we each had a small sip of white wine with us. And I asked her, because I grew up in Boston, and I would see Julia in Cambridge, Mass. at Mr. Savinor's Meat Market and Mr. Dewar's. And I asked her the question, what was the toast? I should tell you, I even trick-or-treated at her house when I was young. So that's the legacy. But I asked her, what was the toast that you shared with your husband, Paul, and your guests when you were together in your home? And she raised her glass to mine, and she clinked it to mine and said, Le Carillon de l'Amitié, the bells of friendship. So Julia gave me that toast. I share it with friends old and new. I give it to you today to share with friends old and new when you clink glasses with this 98-point winning, double gold awarded classic Manhattan cocktail from Courage and Stone. It's ready to drink, it's ready to pour, it's ready to buy, and it's ready to enjoy. Thanks to Aisha Tyler. Thank you so much.
Oh, Jennifer, what a joy spending this time with you. And to everybody out there, thank you for listening. Bartenders and bar culture and cocktails truly are purveyors of joy. And I'm really, really grateful and thrilled to be a part of that joy purveyance.
Well, this is a 98-point double gold winning social lubricant come to life, and I know everyone's thankful for it. So congratulations and thanks.
Cheers, and cheers to you.
Whether you are thinking about becoming a restaurateur or you are already in the business, Michael Politz has written a must-read, The Food and Beverage Magazine's Guide to Restaurant Success. Pick up your copy today at Barnes & Noble, Amazon, Books A Million, or wherever fine books are sold.